Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing A Feast for Odin and the expansion The Norwegians, and generally talking about my experience with this game, as I have done a 12x12 challenge with this game. For those who follow my channel, if you've checked that out, I decided this year to do a 12x12 challenge. 12 games that I'm going to play 12 times each, and to really dive into them fairly heavily, covering a variety of different aspects of them, to try to see them from all different angles, approaches, and all that. Picking specifically games that I've been interested in, games that I already know that I enjoy, but that I want to give them their proper due diligence this year, and A Feast for Odin is the first one I've completed in this challenge. To that end, I'll be doing 12x12 reviews, or something along these lines, across the course of 2023, and A Feast for Odin is the first one making it. This game is a lot. I'll be diving into how it plays at a high-level overview, then my opinion, impressions, the ways I've played the game, the ways my opinion has changed and evolved as I play through the game, and all of that. Let's start off with how this game plays and what it's doing. And timestamps down below in case you want to check anything else out. A Feast for Odin is a game from Uwe Rosenberg, in which you are doing, it's a worker placement engine with polyomino placement built in. That's the general idea. You're going to be placing your workers onto the central board over here. And again, it's going to be high level. I'm going to be showing you what's going on, but not showing you the individual setup. I don't have everything set up properly the way it should be, but it's a worker placement game in which you'll be placing workers down onto the central board. You have actions in column 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is set up with the Norwegian's expansion, but even the base game will look pretty similar to this. Placing a worker, taking a spot in column 1 requires 1 worker, taking a spot in column 3 requires 3 workers, making them better but more expensive as you go. And since in round 1 you only start with 6 workers, that means you can't really take much in the way of 4 column actions. You can get 1 of them in there, and then you have to split up your workers past that to try to efficiently get what you need out of the engine. You can be doing that across multiple rounds of play, 7 rounds of play specifically, 6 rounds in the shorter game. Every round gives you an additional worker. So in round 1 you have 6 workers, but in round 7 you have 12 workers that you're playing with, giving you a lot more flexibility and freedom as far as how you place your workers in the dozens of spots that are on this grid. Now the reason you're placing workers onto this grid is to try to gather polyomino tiles, or more thematically, resources, relics, goods, things you'll be taking and putting onto your board. You see the players have player boards over here that you're trying to fill up as efficiently as possible, because right now you start this game with negative 81 points. I think it's negative 81 points, I'm pretty sure it is, but a large number of negative points. All of these spots over here are negative points. But as you take various tiles and as you fill up your board, not only do you get rid of negative points, but also as you cover up the income spots on the board, you'll start getting progressively higher and higher income. As you can slowly fill up these diagonals in the game, what I'm doing here right now for the record is very inefficient, but I do want to show you how this plays out. But as you cover things into the game, let's say we get this right here, this would never, your starting board will never look like this, but you'll start getting 5 income every single round. That's magnified by the fact that you can gather islands at the same time, and you can start filling spots on islands to also get giant chunks of income in the round. Let's try to play this correctly and grab a little tile here, because I want to take a piece of coin. Let's see if I can get a coin. Sorry for the delay while I try to peel out a coin from this box over here, putting it here. Now it's legal. For those of you who play the game, you'll know that is now legal. Before it was not. But you're placing things onto these boards to get income, but also to get bonuses, because whenever you surround certain tiles, you'll be getting bonuses as well as the income every single round, and you're covering up negative points. That's a big part of it. You're constantly covering up negative points. When you gather islands, when you start the game, you're starting with giant chunks of negative points that you have to cover up, and also try to get the bonuses from them. The problem is, getting goods isn't as easy as getting that giant 3x4 block of 12 that I just showed you. Getting goods is working your way up across the course of the game, trying to go to various spots in the game to place things onto your board. You see, not everything can be placed onto your board. Various red tiles can only be utilized for, well, either feeding your people or in some way converting or upgrading them. You see, you can take a cow and upgrade it to get that leather cloak over there, and you can upgrade the leather cloak to be this metal gauntlet of armor or whatever it is. But you're taking these tiles, you're trying to place them and upgrade them because of the fact that on your central board, on the main board you're trying to fill up, you can only place green and blue tiles. So therefore you want to upgrade your tiles. Why would you upgrade them to blue? Because green can't touch green on this board. When you're placing things down over here, you cannot have a situation where green ever touches another green. That's illegal. You'd have to separate it a bit and then put something else in the middle so you can actually have them, but blue has no such limitation, which means blue can touch whatever it wants, giving you greater flexibility as you place tiles onto your grid. That's where the central board comes into play. This central board, where you are placing your workers as you play through A Feast for Odin, are going to be a ton of different ways you can try to build out your engine in the game. You can gather extra houses from these rows over here, and these are going to give you extra places to put things, as well as giving you points, as well as giving you bonuses as you fill up your board. You're going to go hunting over here, where you're going to roll dice, trying to see if you can roll nice and low numbers. That's a great number right there. Low numbers are going to help you as you go hunting in various spots, trying to gather various resources, red resources that you can feed your people or upgrade to green, or green resources that you can put onto your board in those polyomino shapes. In the livestock market, you'll start gathering animals that can also breed every round. You can start getting animals pregnant and then producing new animals, and not to get too polyomino on you, but 2 cows are a lovely thing. But when your 2 cows produce a 3rd cow over here, now suddenly you've just produced an extra 12 points worth of spots that you can cover up once you upgrade that tile. So generating polyomino tiles from the affection and love of these pregnant animals is a part of the game as you manage the livestock market. You can have all these spots over here that you deal with the livestock market in different ways. Down here, you're going to have the weekly market where you can gather and trade different items in. The crafting locations over here will let you trade goods for other goods or resources for goods to get certain tiles. The mountains and trade are going to allow you to take resources from these mountain tiles that are going to be coming out every single round. And then down here, you can use the various ships that you can buy and or build throughout the course of the game. You can use those in these various spots down here in order to go pillaging, or in order to trade resources in, or to go trade buying resources, goods from these various other sideboards over here we haven't heavily talked about. Finally, you also have boats that you can use to fill up your spots and not feed your people. You have these spots where you can take these boats that you've acquired, boats you'll use for different things, and then you can take them and you can turn them and flip them, getting chunks of points, but also feeding up your food board, because every single round you need to feed your people with either food or money, or risk losing points. Past that, you also have occupations. You'll be gathering occupations across the course of the game. Whenever you place 3 workers down at a time, you'll get an occupation, plus there's other spots that can give you occupations. And whenever you place 4 workers down at a time, or go to certain spots, you can play those occupations. And those all give you different things, either one-time bonuses or ongoing effects that can in some way help you. And there's giant stacks of cards available to you. Giant stacks full of multiple decks of cards that you can use, starting in ongoing occupations, so that you always have some new twist, some new approach as to how you're going to approach this game. That's the general idea of Feast of Odin. Across 7 rounds of play, 6 in the short game, place workers out, every single round getting additional workers, but every single round having to feed more people. Try to build up your engine by placing those workers efficiently on the board, to gather the right tiles, to convert them in at the right times in the right ways, and to get as many things as possible to fill up your boards, to explore new islands, to explore new resource boards, and to just generally get as many points as possible, primarily through the negation of negative points, but also, going ahead and just getting chunks of points for immigration, for the island boards you acquire, for the various resource boards you manage to hold, for the money you're generating every single round. That's always worth a point, and try to do so as efficiently as possible, given the fact that you have like 60 different worker placement spots you can go to. Which makes me try a review of the game, which is going to be a very different format than my usual reviews because of the nature of this 12x12 challenge and the different ways I'm approaching this game. And to that end, first of all, in 2023 alone, I have something like 18 to 20 plays of this under my belt. I've well crossed the 12x12 threshold. I've been diving into this a lot and thoroughly enjoying it. Again, I'm somewhere in the range of 20 plays so far. And from those plays, I've played this game solo multiple times. I've played it 2-player multiple times. I've played it 3 players. I've played 4 players once. 4 players was only once. Take that into account. I've played the expansion. I've played it on BGA. I've more Board Game Arena. I've played it in person. Are there any other ways I can explore this game? I played it with the extra islands as well. I don't have all the promos and extras, but I played with the extra 2 islands. I have dove into this game in a variety of different ways. Again, all different player counts, with and without the expansion, digitally and physically, and played this game a lot. And let's talk about my experience with this game. First of all, 20 plays in, I haven't gotten at all sick of this game. Not in the slightest, not one bit. This game is absolutely incredible. This game gives you so much tactical depth to it in terms of the way you can approach so many different strategies and combine nuanced aspects of those strategies. Whether you go heavy on immigration in order to get as many boats as possible so you don't have to worry about feeding your people, and you can instead use your various harvest goods to fill up various huts for both bonus points and ongoing benefits. There's a ton of ways you can do that. But maybe you don't go full immigration. Maybe full immigration is not a little too strong. Maybe you dial it back a bit. Because immigration, by the way, when you flip those boats, those are worth tons of points. Maybe you instead focus on just gathering as many islands as possible and filling them up as quickly as possible. You can get nice, strong starting bonuses, starting income getting very quickly if you take those islands, but then you have to fill them up because they start with negative points. And you have to fill up your central board too because it's negative 81 points if you're not careful. But if you do it right, you can have income of 30 coins a round, and heading into those last 2 rounds, that can be the difference that pushes you from a 100-point score to a 140-point score if you do it and manage it right. Maybe you focus very heavily on all the hunting or the raiding. Raiding, pillaging, and hunting are fun ways to roll dice. When you do roll dice, you do always have 3 rolls, by the way, so if you don't like the roll, blue dice, you want them to be high. The orange dice, that's not true, not blue or orange. In the hunting areas, you want low values. In the raiding and pillaging areas, you want high values. And so maybe you're trying to go ahead and pillage, and you roll a 5, and you get 2 more rolls, an 8. Do I keep that 8 or do I go a little higher? I'm going to risk it and go a little higher. And we got a 10. Beautiful. That's amazing. That's incredible. It's awesome. But alternatively, you might have rolled a 1 in the last roll. Instead, have to retreat and pull back some workers. And you still get extras. When you lose the dice rolling in this game, you do get stuff back, so it's never a complete waste of time. But you do have to balance what you walk into a roll with. There are so many different pathways to pursue in this game, and the different ways you combine them all is going to be where you find your own leverage. And again, 20 plays in, I feel like I'm only just barely appreciating and understanding how much this game does. Playing online is great, by the way. I do highly recommend this game on Board Game Arena. I think it is a great implementation of the game. I do recommend playing it physically almost first if you're able to. I think you'll understand a lot more of what's going on if you don't have a digital system holding your hand along the way, that you don't know some of the reasons things are happening in the background. But if you do play it physically, you'll have an opportunity to dive into and see everything that's happening here, to go through the process of setting up, which is not small if you don't know what's going on, but it's also not that much if you do know what's going on. You can have piles of resources to manage, piles of trays that are all going to give you all these different tokens and 4 different levels of upgrading as you go through them. And I'm not even showing you the token trays from the Norwegian's expansion that introduces new shapes as well. Speaking of the Norwegian's expansion, I believe it's generally referred to as an essential expansion. I don't know if I feel that way. I like the Norwegian's expansion. I think it's excellent, and I would never choose to play without it if it's available. But I will say that BGA doesn't have it. Board Game Arena does not have the Norwegian's expansion, and I'm still happy to play regular Feast for Odin as is. I think the Norwegian's expansion offers you new worker placement spots and new certain shapes that you can utilize as far as that let you dance around with some of the bonuses here. I haven't heavily talked about it. Whenever you surround a bonus, you're going to get ongoing bonuses every single round from those spots, and usually you have to rely on either just a lot of work and placement or some of these various relic tiles that are a little harder to get your hands on. But now with the Norwegian expansion, you have these spots that can wrap around it that are still require work and still require dedication to get there. But there's a lot of ways you can chain everything together as far as how you try to just min and max your strategies, because there are so many things to do. There is blocking in this game, but it's not a heavy blocking game. This is a game where you have, like, the cross the round of placement. You may have someone get in your way once or twice at most. Most of the time it's about, I'm trying to do something, you're trying to do something. There's a million different ways to do it, and sometimes you go to that spot that I really, really needed because I needed those last few resources from that mountain. I needed that extra coal, those coins, or I needed to go there and I wanted to go whaling over there because I'm primed for whaling. I've built my boats out that way. And the boats are a fun part of it as well. The way you can build out your boats in so many different pathways as far as how you focus on the boats, the in-game bonuses they give you. Whaling boats give you whaling. You have the Nars that give you a bunch of trading options as well as upgrading options. And then you have the longboats that help you go pillaging and raiding, which is one of my favorite strategies when I first started playing this game, but I haven't played that in a while. One of the things that I find fascinating about A Feast for Odin is the amount of ways I've tried approaching this game, the amount of ways I've tried approaching this engine and this puzzle, and the way I've changed and shifted and evolved what I do and how I do it. When I first dove into this game, pillaging, raiding, and immigration were my jam. That's what I love doing. Gather those boats, try to raid with as many boats as possible, and try to upgrade what you can do over here, and then eventually flip them over so you get that income and you're good to go. Just load your board up with all these blue pieces you're able to get your hands on, and of course the relics. But now I tend to find myself being a bit more of a hunter. I barely ever touch immigration anymore, and I've done well without that. I don't know what the optimal prime strategy is, but I know that some of my highest scoring games have involved me not immigrating a single boat. And my highest scoring games may not be your highest scoring games. I saw someone say they got 185 in this game, and I am blown away. I do not understand how that score is possible. But hey, if they did it, they did it. There's so many things you can do in this game, so many pathways. The Norwegian's expansion does nicely balance things out. Again, I don't think it's essential, but I do like it. I like the addition of the multiple animals. I like that 5th action column where you can go ahead and your last spot can be here, and you can potentially get a little better spot, but it has to be your last spot. And so sometimes these things are great, but they're setting you up for the next round instead of this round, which gives you that trade-off aspect. You can even play that extra, that extra occupation card. Speaking of occupation cards, they can be hit and miss because there's so many of them, and sometimes they don't feed into your strategy. But there's enough of them, and if you get them early enough on, you can use them to create the strategy you're going to work around. I think prime use of those cards and the way you manage and utilize those cards into your strategy, the way you weave them into your strategy, can be the difference between a very good score and a very, very good score. Because at the end of the day, A Feast for Odin gives you so many ways to approach its engine. But if you're approaching that exact engine with 2 or 3 cards that work well for what you're doing, that's just going to be a better experience for you. Because you're doing the same thing, but you're doing the same thing with a little bit of help, but you do have to potentially risk the fact that you're trying to get those cards out early can be hard. Placing a 4-worker action early game is a lot, and giving up workers to just play a card can seem inefficient, but can be the right move for you at the right time. Playing this game solo is an interesting experience. Playing it solo has you play basically alternating sets of workers so that you block yourself. So that you place workers one round, and then the next round you take a different color workers and you place those workers, so that every round you're alternating, blocking yourself from the previous round, which is actually harder than a regular game. Because usually in a regular game, you're doing your strategy, I'm doing my strategy, we'll have some overlap, but I'm not necessarily trying to do the same thing every single round. I might be whaling every single round, you might be pillaging every single round. The problem is in a solo game, if my strategy involves whaling every single round, I can't whale every single round because I'm blocking myself in the last round, which is annoying, and it's weird being in your own way, although that's how the solo game operates. I enjoy the challenge of the solo game, I enjoy the puzzle of it, and I think it's a great way to try different things and learn different things, but I think it's interesting in the sense that I find it less rewarding than the regular game, and it's also harder to train yourself for the regular game past a certain point because of the fact that you are blocking yourself every other round, which means you have to approach the game differently. It's good for learning all the ways different things combine and the ways different things coalesce, so it is good for a training grounds to some extent, but at a certain point you'll start locking yourself into patterns that you would not have in a real game, so it'll only take you so far. There's a lot of depth to this game. A ton of depth. There's a reason it's like, what is it, number 5 on Board Game Geek, or maybe a bit higher. It's high. It's a highly rated game on Board Game Geek. I think number 5 is Ark Nova, number 4 is Ark Nova. A Feast for Odin is very high. It's a highly rated game, and it's a highly rated game that I have enjoyed diving into in different ways. The ways you can explore the different islands, the way the islands flip every round, trying to choose whether to get the extra gold on islands, or alternatively to just take them right now and start locking them in early. Do you try to get an island in round 1? You can do that, you can, and you can actually have a decent game from it if you properly structure your bonuses, but it also means you're taking something before it has had gold pile up, and usually your central board versus the islands in those early rounds are a little bit more competitive. It's as your central board expands that it becomes harder and harder to get the additional income, so mid-round islands often does make sense. But early round islands with the right placement, with the right puzzle, can also be very rewarding. The fact that you can buy boats instead of using workers to get boats, especially in later rounds, as boats and as your workers are so precious and the things they do on your turn are so important, every single aspect of that is a lot in this game. There's 60-ish worker placement spots in this game. That's what it comes down to. There's 60-ish worker placement spots. And they all give you a different puzzle of how you want to approach this. They all give you different occupations that reward you for different things that you're doing. There's a lot to consider and a lot to play through as you try to figure out how to optimize towards that 150 point score, which I haven't hit yet. I think my top score is like not 150. It's not 150. The vast amount of occupations means that this is a game that I have continued to dive into and continue to see new occupations at play. The fact that you have like 8 different islands and they flip, or 6 different islands and they flip, means you have 12 potential different islands at play, a ton of worker placement spots, and a ton of strategies to pursue, and reasons to go one way or the other, including the occupations and including the other players and how they approach it. I find that this game plays best as a 2 and 3 player game, is my own opinion. I find 4 just slows it down, and 1 I don't find it quite as rewarding. 2 players I think is the best in terms of the back-to-back, we're just doing our own thing and there's like a low degree of playtime, but I do enjoy having a 3rd player in general. I find in general in games a 3rd player makes it go a bit more from a head-to-head experience to a drop more of a social experience, and I do like what that adds. Playing it physically is not overwhelmingly hard to do. There's a decent amount of setup, but it's still good. I would say the math is the bigger issue you have. The math of going through the conversion of goods, of putting, the math and the upgrading of goods. Trading goods physically into the bank back and forth as you upgrade things, and trying to make sure you don't accidentally flip them at any given point, because then it'll mess up what you have. As well as the math of trying to figure out what's going to go on your board and how it's going to come back, and automatic calculation of your bonuses. There's a lot of good things on Board Game Arena as far as how this game operates and how it gives you a smooth, streamlined experience. I still like playing in person though, because of the social element. So playing in person is still my preferred go-to way to play this game, even though playing it online gives you a lot of additional bonuses and perks as far as how you dive into it. Overall, Feast for Odin has been a tremendous experience with a ton of variability, a million different ways to approach the engine, and it's a game that has held up just fine to 20 plays, and I think it'll hold up just fine to another 20 or 30 plays. I would not be surprised if I played this game 100 times by the end of the year. It is an easy game to play, and it's not an easy game to learn. It's a lot to learn, but it's not that overwhelming. If you can find someone willing to teach it to you, it's worth the investment, both financially as well as the mental energy it gives you. Not takes from you, but gives you. Which I guess brings me to final thoughts on this one. I haven't really tackled this review from an approach of what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking the way I typically would. I like nearly everything in this game. Nearly everything. I'm trying to think of those things I don't like. I can see people being frustrated by the dice rolling. It's something that when I first dove into this game, it bothered me that there was dice rolling in a heavy Euro game. I don't mind it quite as much anymore, although there certainly are times. There are times when I'm rolling this and I get like a 7, an 8, and then this right there. Here we go. That's beautiful. Right there you saw on camera. Something that's happened to me in games. Where you roll a 7, 8, and 7 on a die that's supposed to be low, and you're like, forget the odds. Sometimes you got hit with that. So the dice rolling I can see being frustrating, although, again, for me, I've played this one enough times that I like the dice rolling. It's almost fun. It adds this degree of like, oh my gosh, I just rolled a high or low number that you want, and it's counted by the times that there are times where you roll a number you don't want, and you can't do anything about it. You do get goods when you fail, and you do get workers back when you fail, so it's not overly punishing, but it can mess with the strategy that is otherwise going great for you. There is a degree of paperwork and maintenance in this game that goes on, not little paperwork, but maintenance. There's a degree of maintenance in the game that might turn some of you off if you're not playing it online. And so that's another thing that's worth mentioning or addressing, that is present. And then past that, it might be overwhelming for you. There's 60 worker placement spots in this game. That's a whole lot of spots to consider and think through what you want to do. 60-ish, I don't remember the exact number. There's a lot going on here. I like nearly everything it's doing. I think this is an excellent system that has so much happening that it doesn't get old or boring because there's so much happening. And that's in addition to the worker placements, but then combined with the occupations and of course combined with reacting to other players. As far as final thoughts go, this game is a 5 out of 5 for me. It has to be. It is so good at what it does, and diving into it more and more has only further added to just what the game does. I don't think Norwegians is essential. I think it's a 5 out of 5 as is, and so far I will always play with Norwegians when I'm able to, but I will not overly miss it when I don't, at least not yet. Solo is a way that I don't see myself playing that often, but the game itself, at 2 and 3 players, 4 is also a little much by the way, at 2 and 3 players, this is an excellent experience that I can only recommend as much as I possibly can. And it's a game that I wrote off a long time ago. When I first played it a very long time ago, my very first play of it, I was like, it's good, but I'm not really getting this heavy worker placement combined with a polyomino puzzle engine. It feels like a disconnect between the things. And to a certain extent, it still does, by the way. That whole aspect of placing these goods onto your board in some way, shape, or form, like, I don't understand what's happening or why. So thematically, there is a disconnect for me. But mechanically, it is one of the more brilliant games I've played, and I understand why it's Uwe Rosenberg's highest rated game. And that's my 12x12 review of A Feast for Odin. I played this game in basically every configuration I possibly can. I held off. The reason I'm at like 20 plays instead of like 12 is because of the fact that I wanted to play it in all the configurations and not just hit those 12 plays. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Keep your eyes peeled on the channel. There'll be more 12x12 reviews over the year. I'm diving into a lot of heavier games that many of them I've played, and some of them are getting reviews of games that I've already given reviews of, but with more context, experience, and modes of play under my belt. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.